you actually invest in a
Hello.
lot.
Hi.
How are you?
I truly am here. Hi, everybody. I'm truly here. I'm calling in from Bali, which is very, very spoiling. I have got my children, so apologies in the background if you hear noise. I've spent the past 4 years with my husband and I set up our own investment platform called STEM Innovations. And we are investing in early stage companies, which are mainly female-led, or certainly are driving positive impact to the world in which we live. So it has been an extraordinary year, but I am all about positivity and bring on 2021. And I look forward to spending some time with you all after the call. So thank you so much, Ines, for inviting me.
Thank you. Well, cheers to that. Everyone, please raise your coffee. We're going to be starting now the session. So just a kind reminder, please stay on mute. The way the session will be, I'll have a chat with Richard, our guest today, for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have 20 minutes open Q&A. So you'll get the chance to, for those of you who haven't yet, to introduce yourself to the group and also ask questions to Richard. So yes, thanks so much, Richard, for accepting our invitation. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so we've been quite excited to have you for this Coffee with CEO session that we're regularly hosting with our members. So first of all, maybe I'd love if you could share with everyone a bit of what you do as CEO of the automobile group Apollo.
Yeah, I think I'll introduce myself a little bit first, and then I'll talk about a group. I start off as an investment banker back in 1994. I'm actually quite old, look young, but I'm actually quite old. So anyway, so I have a lot of experience in both listed company side and private project side fundraising experience. I myself moved to the listed company side in 2009, helping various listed company for restructurings. So that's my listed company experience. This is my third one. I have also launched 2 projects myself over the past 10 years. One is in the skincare business, raised at $8 million US to launch a brand called Razine, RACCINE. Actually did quite well, for 7 years. We have been selling in 8 countries from US, Canada, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, So was interviewed by 29 magazine in UK. So that's the private project side. But unfortunately, I realized that the skincare business, the bigger you grow, the more you need to invest into. It's like a black hole. So we stopped it last year. And then I created another entertainment business with training school, artist training school in Korea, Taipei, and China right now. So raised it 12 million US on that one as well. So that's also on the private side. On the public side, not counting when I was in investment banking, that's another story. But from a listed company point of view, over the past 10 years, I think I already more than raised $1 billion US just for companies. So I do have a lot of experience in fundraising. Now I have been appointed as a CEO, a group CEO for Apollo Group. Is Hong Kong listed, stock code 870. Our shareholder base is Mr. Li Ka-shing, Ms. Selina Chow, Mr. Edmund Ho, which is the former chief executive of Macau, and also Dr. Jiang Mianheng, which is Mr. Jiang Zemin eldest son. And also recently we have invited one of the large Saudi Arabian family also invested into 860. Whoa, wrong stock code. I'll get killed by all my shareholders. It's 860. Sorry about that. Anyway, so what Apollo does is we focus in 2 sides of the business. One is auto creation, basically from hypercar which sell for between $1 million to $3 million range. And also we help various big brands in the world like Volkswagen Group to create a new line of models. For example, the latest e-tron from Audi was actually co-developed by our subsidiary in Germany. So we focus in technologies in both the ICE, traditional internal combustion engine, automobile, and also the electric vehicle as well. So that's what Apollo does. And so that's what Apollo is focused on. And over the past 2 years, my appointment was to restructure Apollo. So we have raised it $140 million US dollar to restructure the whole thing. And recently, we just completed the $60 million US dollar raise, mostly from the Middle Eastern and Europeans. So that's what my background and Apollo background is.
Wow, congratulations then for raising another round recently. And I think I speak for everyone that it's quite an impressive resume. And I'm sure you've seen like all our members here today are very different kind of businesses and backgrounds. But I'm sure you'll be able to share something that will definitely be relevant for them wherever they are in their fundraising journey. I mean, first of all, I would like to ask, like, can you just share a bit more maybe about this? How do you raise so many funds for your private business, especially the beauty business, I think is an interesting one. And how did you actually make it to raise those funds?
Yeah, I think I see among the group of members here are mostly entrepreneur themselves, and I guess it would be more relevant for me to talk about the private side. And also because the private side, the most difficult side, the public one is easy. So the private side is a lot more difficult. My very first suggestion is always start with friends and family. Okay. When you have the first batch, then it'll be easier for you to go around and raise, because the problem of fundraising is you have to understand there are different appetite for different level of investors. Okay, if you are creating a business that you start off with 5 million, you have different group of investor, 10 million, there's different group of investor, 50 million, different group of investors. So every levels has different group of investors. Unless you understand what is their risk appetite, you will never hit the right group of people. So that is the top advice for you, is you have to understand what kind of size you're raising, what kind of business you're doing, and then where you will start to look for. But always start with friends, family. That's the best to start out with. But remember, because it's a private business, you will have a risk of bellying up, right? So be ready that you will lose all these friends and family, okay? Because they will no longer talk to you after you lose their money, okay? But that is the always the case, okay? So be ready, okay? Make sure that you have the preparations of losing friends and family when you start raising money. And when you reach certain size again, like for example, my beauty business, when we first launched, we have a very big goal, want to be a global brand in a very short period of time. So it's good to have a big dream, because when you have big dream, you can easier to attract bigger pot of money, okay? If you're saying that, oh, I'm launching a business that worth $100,000, then okay, forget it. You don't need to even raise, just go to your family and friends. That's it. Because a lot of the family office or high net worth individuals, they like big dreams. Okay, you have to pitch them a very big goal, big dreams, for them to be interested in what you are doing. Okay, so that is the second thing that I advise you guys. So make sure that whatever you are trying to build on your business side, think big, very big. Okay, but of course, don't bluff. You know, you might need to bluff a little bit, but not to the extent that people think that, oh, you're ridiculous. That is done. First impression is very important as well. So that's the third advice. So for me, during the beauty business raising, one thing is I want to be a global brand in short period of time. So that's why I have explained the amount that we need for global marketing. That's one thing. Second is we found a very good technical partners in Korea to help us basically create the formulas, the products. And also, instead of registering in Hong Kong, I registered a brand in Canada, making sure that people understand that it is have the image of clean and purity of type of environment on the brand. So if you type Racine Canada, RACCINE, you find a lot of articles globally. So and also I found that European investors and U.S. investors are the one that willing to take high risk of investment. So I travel to London a lot. There are several intermediary that I work with. They're not broker because how should I say? They're more of middlemen. They create event for individual projects leader to come join the drinks party, talk to these people. One of them is called Bespoke. They're quite good. I like them a lot. So they do a lot of event every year. You travel with them basically in various towns in London, in other part of UK, and they will bring in a lot of high net worth individuals. You mingle with them, talk to them, and I actually have raised it twice of the amount from my beauty projects and also my skincare projects from European investors. Yeah.
Very interesting. So you would say you wouldn't know those investors, and how long it actually take you to raise fund from them?
Usually take about 3 to 6 months. You met with them first, you get the interested party, and then you start conversation more and more in details. The key thing for all these investors, first things is, aside from projects, the number one thing that they actually look for is the passion of the project leader, which is the founders. Yeah, so that is very important, because if you're able to show them your passion of creating this, then usually they will be interested to understand more of your vision, what you are trying to build. Yeah, so that is something that I guess all members need to practice, is when you talk about your project, make it very exciting. Okay. Yeah, so don't say like, yeah, I'm building this. Yeah, I'm expecting it to grow to 200 million 2 years later. Then forget it. They'll be gone. So yeah, so that is the top priorities.
Absolutely. And sorry, I cut you. You were mentioning also the difference between European investors and in Asia. What's your experience of investors in Asia?
Asia investors is very difficult, especially in Hong Kong. Raising money is extremely difficult. First of all, the family office in Hong Kong, because they are mostly second or third generations, all they care about is cash flow. So so they only care about doing it more as a loan. But of course, when you're raising money, basing it as a loan, you need to have collaterals. So usually you have to give up your housing, all these for as collaterals, because again, please, whatever I'm talking about today will be extremely blunt. Don't spread it outside. I'm just telling you the fact of the whole global money raising scene. Okay, so I'm sharing this because I've gone through a lot of a tough lesson to learn over the past 30 years. So that's the reason why I hope that I'll be able to help young or new entrepreneur.
Yes, thanks, Richard. This is why we invited you. We want this.
Yeah, so I just hope that I won't scare you, but it's, you know, what I'm telling you, all these are real. And with Hong Kong, it's very difficult because all these second, third generation, all they care about is buying racing car, buying yachts, you know, partying. So they are not really interested in investing. They only care about is giving you a loan and getting an interest fee back. That's all, you know. So if you can pay, they'll take your house. That's it. So it's difficult to pitch family office in Hong Kong if you have a small size of business. Like even 10 million, 20 million, 30 million US in Hong Kong, they'll still see it very small. Because surprisingly, in Hong Kong, there are really tons of really, really rich people. And they're not really that risk adverse. So in my view is, oh, and China as well. Forget about China. Yeah. Unless you are focusing your business only in China, then you should raise money from China. But aside from that is, in my experience is, people that are willing to invest into you and throughout the investment period of your company mostly are really Europeans and US investors, because those are the people that actually have a very professional view of investing into you and then partnering with you and then trying to get a result, you know, 3, 4, 5 years later. So that's my experience over the past 30 years for private, smaller size business. If it is Lisco, it's different. Lisco, Hong Kong's easy because, you know, liquidity is in and out. So family office interesting and big family in Hong Kong is also quite easy to raise money for Lisco. But for private business, it is difficult to be very honest. Yeah, and Korea is interesting for a location of raising money because people are getting richer there. A lot of corporate is actually flooded with cash. So Korea is actually becoming another interesting location for fundraising. Actually, Taiwan as well. Don't forget Taiwan. Taiwan has very interesting mindset that very similar to American, in my view. The second generations are willing to take risk. Yeah, willing to understand what you're trying to do and work with you in the longer term. So in Asia, I would say Japan. No, sorry, Japan is not. Taiwan, Korea, Singapore. These three Asia location will be a good place for raising private projects money. Yeah. What I mean is not private equity. Private equity, I'm talking about 100 million, 200 million. That's private equity is much bigger. But for entrepreneur like you guys, or like my projects before, which is 10, 15, 20 million, these are the interesting locations to look for investors. And
Right.
of course.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. It's very interesting. It's good to know. And actually, we were like, I think a lot of people are wondering, like, how do we actually get some of the top investors to look into our projects? If you had any advice for entrepreneurs, yeah, on how.
Well, as I said, you need top. If you want top investors, you have to have a very big projects. Yeah. So I'm talking about what I mean by. But privately, big projects, you're talking about 50 million to 100 million US, you know, to launch that big projects. So those you can attract high-end, you know, investors. But for a lot of the entrepreneur, I would say even 10, 20, 30 million US will be the size, right? For most of your projects, in my view. Then I think it will be interesting once we can travel again. It'll be interesting for you guys to look up those mediator in Europe. Bespoke is one of them. There are plenty in Europe that they have a lot of mediator that they do fundraising, not only in Europe, but not only in UK, but for Switzerland. Liechtenstein is another place that you can find good investors. So my view of raising smaller size projects, longer term money, Europe is always my top locations. For bigger size institutional business, institutional investors, US is great. Yeah, because they have huge amount of firepower and very long time investment time frame to sit with you. But again, different size, different group of people. So it really depends on the size of your business. Yeah. So my suggestion is, if you're very passionate about launching something, like Anna, our founder, FEW, I keep telling her, this things will be global very easily. Yeah. So I would say that, easily you can find lots of investors globally from Europe, from US, and FEW can become a global brand very easily. So when you launch your business, try to aim big, so then you can attract the high-end investor. But usually, if you are launching a small business between $1 million US to 10 million US, I would suggest mostly from European-based investors, from families, Taiwanese-based, Korean-based. These will be the Singaporean-based. Yeah. So these are the locations that I usually look for.
Great, that's really good advice. We were also wondering, so what would you include actually in a fundraising plan?
What would I include? Definitely the long-term vision. What you see in 3 to 5 years of your business. Okay, that is very important, because don't tell me how interesting now, because there's nothing, right? You have nothing to show me, but I need your vision. Because, like, for example, when I raised the 8 million of Razin, we have nothing. I don't even have a brand. I just pitched the idea. So I went to London and joined the gathering and say, hey, Korean K-pop is doing well. Korean skincare is doing well. And most of the projects, most of the products in skincare, they are brand focused, not really product focused. So a lot of the women are buying the products, mostly just a brand. It's not really even useful. So my plan is to launch a brand that is reasonable in price, but very effective products. So that's my pitch. And we show a lot of data on global markets, so that people understand what is the potential size if we grow into. Okay, so that's what I did, and very quickly, back then, timing is very important, though, of course. Back then, Korean, anything that Koreans sounds good. So when I went to UK, immediately out of the 8 million, we raised 3, like that. So and then the rest of 5 million is from friends, myself, put together. So we have about 40% of the 8 million raised from investor that I've never met with, but no, which means I didn't know of before. So just during those gathering we met. So very effective, very effective. And then the Korean, the Korean entertainment business. Not really Korean, but I'm trying to use the Korean system to create a pan-Asian artist training and then artist management platform. Raised at 11 million, that one. Also, majority is from Europe as well. So that's 2 successful case. The entertainment business is still being run by my management team. It's part of my investment, but I don't run it myself. But that was a successful case of raising 11 million in very short period of time.
So for you, like networking is basically a really good way to get potential investors.
And also, don't mind paying. For example, the company I talk about, Bespoke, they're just event creators that bring in investors. So that is actually quite useful. And they only charge you event pricing. Basically, you are there to participate, but whatever you raise, they don't get a cut anyway. So there are a lot of these companies in Europe and US as well. So just take time to dig up, and a lot of them are very friendly. Try, when we can start traveling, of course, not now, but it's definitely a good source of investment. You'll be surprised of how receptive UK investors are and European investors are than Asian investors. Yeah, Asian investor only looking for quick bucks or consistent cash flow, two things. Without that, usually forget it, unless you're friends.
Yeah. And so would you recommend actually that an entrepreneur would need a fundraising team? And if so, what kind of role would be in that team?
No. Always the founder. People want to see the passion of the founder and the vision of the founder. Yeah, don't send your team there, And also don't let other people do this part of the job for you, because investor want to see the passion, the vision, and also how sincere you are, basically trying to get this money. And so unless you're talking about, I'm launching a business of $1 billion US, then don't go. Send your team. Yeah, but aside from that, if you're a really entrepreneur launching a business between $1 million, 10 million, or even 50 million, do it yourself.
Great. And do you see actually any difference between male and female like investors? Like, is there's any difference?
I guess
this is a topic that is much stronger in Europe, I would say.
Yeah, I would say not really, but very importantly is yeah, sorry about that. I have to say, but your appearance, you have to really dress well, get your hair cut, you get a very clean, positive image. I tell you a story. My another friend is building a business that I think his product is amazing, but he couldn't raise a dime over the past 2 years. And he asked me, well, what happened? I couldn't raise money for so long, So then I talked to his CEO. That's the guy that who go around and raise money. He's a German guy. First of all, it's nothing to do, nothing German. Okay, I have 100 staff German, so I love German. So, but that guy, English is not very good. So he speaks English with a very heavy German accent. That's, first of all, it's difficult to understand. Second of all is he keeps sweating. I don't know if he's too nervous or what. He just keeps sweating. So the whole shirt is wet. Like, as an investor, you just don't want to talk to him like for too long. Yeah. So appearance is very important. He starts to get smelly because of the sweat. So then these are things that you have to be paying very close attention to do as well. Your appearance, how you talk to investors, how you present yourself. All of these are very important. Not only male, female. Important thing is your outlook, your first impression, already get you 50% to the door. Okay, the rest people will start listening to you. Yeah. So this is very important.
I'm sorry. So I'm just gonna ask a few more questions and then I'll open to everyone. But what would be from your experience, the best exit strategies for private companies?
Exit strategies. My experience is the best is trade sell, It's very good. You're selling it to your competitors or industry people. So that's one. Because whatever you built, it's worth something, no matter how good or not good enough. But whatever you built, there's definitely a worth into it. Okay, so there's value into it. So trade sale is definitely one of them. Second thing is backdoor list. Backdoor list is similar to trade sale, but it's just that instead of you're selling it mostly with cash, you might be exchanging some listed shares. Like for example, this is what we have done in Apollo. We have bought Apollo from a group of investors because Apollo was a hypercar brand created in Germany back in 2004 by a chief engineer of Audi back then. But this is another advice. Don't let your engineer run your business. 99% of engineers run the business to the ground because they're not business minded, so they think of the engineering. So like for example, Apollo first generations car is a great piece of engineer success, but it's very uncomfortable to sit with, to drive with, to even getting in and out because the engineer, they don't think of the consumer part of the business. Yeah, so they went bankrupt. A group of investors bought it, rebuilt it, and we bought it from them. So this is a good example of if you have a good business, look for Lisco that you are that they will potentially interested in buying. Like for example, my entertainment, artist training, and artist management business already have several suitor Lisco that they're interested to look into buying because of it's hard to get into the Korean training system because it's a very close circle. So by selling the business to these listed company in exchange of some cash and shares, it will be good exit for some of our investors, the long-term investors.
Great, thank you for sharing. We're getting a lot of questions, so I think I'm gonna let our members actually ask you the questions directly. I saw Mary, you have a question. Would you like to ask to Richard directly?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Richard. Very interesting. We hope that we can still find some money from Hong Kong. But anyway, I just wanted to know how do you do the valuation of a company which doesn't exist yet, knowing that we also need to imagine what kind of percentage we will have to give to these investors. So how do you do that, in fact?
Yeah, usually what we do is we use comparisons of similar company within industries. If you talk about, for example, easiest to find is listed company, but of course, you have to give a very big discount out of that listed company compared to what you have created,
yes.
Right? But the important thing is, as I said before, you have to be able to give your vision and your what do you expect that you are building in 3 to 5 years. So when you are able to present that pictures to these investors, when they can also see what you see, then they are more than receptive on negotiating on valuations. Because be very honest, numbers are not made up. I don't want to say make it up, but it's a agreeable numbers that the two parties when you negotiate. Okay, but if you are able to see a vision, saying, "Hey, in 3 years, this is what I envision." 300 distribution points and selling it with the sales volume of 30 million, 40 million US a year, then you can able to talk about valuations and you can come to the midpoint of agreeing the valuation. So your vision and what your business will turn into is very key.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I have a question from MS Wong. MS Wong, would you like to ask the question directly?
Oh, hi. You're on mute.
Hi, and I think Inez, hi. Great sharing, Richard. Thank you. I had two questions. One was, I mean, you're slightly biased in that you're a former banker, but what's your view on the role of using corporate finance advisors, particularly when you're raising around sort of 10 to 20 million US? What's your view on the role? And secondly, you talked about media, and I'm interested in this given what I do. You talked about the role of media for your skincare company. I'm just interested in how you view media in terms of propelling valuations.
Oh, yes. That's a very good question. First of all, I definitely agree that, should always try to use the corporate finance advisor to advise the business on, first of all, packaging. If you are having the right packaging of your business, the story, the presentations, materials, the vision, the idea. So having a corporate finance advisor is very important for a business, for any business, in my view. Yeah, but of course, some if you are launching it with a very small scale, then don't bother because not cheap. Yeah, but if you're willing to, if you're looking to raise between 5, 10, 20 million, then I seriously think that you should definitely look for corporate finance advisors. That's one. And then, sorry, what's the second question?
Thank you. Second question was the role of the media in propelling valuations and driving valuations.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Depends on what you do, because in my view is whatever business that you're launching, you are launching a brand, okay? Either it's your own name or the company is a brand. Branding is very important. So using the media to leverage up the valuation is definitely the key. For example, when we first launched the business in Razines, we raised it, the first batch of the money amongst friends, families, colleagues, and most of them I don't see anymore, unfortunately. Yeah, and then what we did is we went to UK to get a branding advisor's advice to help us repackage ourselves, and also through her connections, I have 29 interviews from various magazine, newspaper. You're talking about Vogue, Vanity Fair, those chief editors. So with that, immediately, suddenly, people think that, oh my God, Razine is actually a brand, Then with that, when we bring it to our London potential pool of investors, they see that, oh, whoa, you guys have done well, already get your name out, So on the second round, when we raise it, then your valuations, before we even start making money, already up. Yeah, so that is something that, depending on what you do, though, of course, if you're doing a consumer products, that's definitely the top advice,
Thank you very much, Richard. Very helpful.
No problem.
Thank you.
Great. We have Elle who has a question as well about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing, Richard. Very useful, very insightful. Thanks a lot. My question is, I think it was really interesting to get your perspectives on the differences between European, US, and Asian investors. What are your thoughts about valuation from the different regions? Because my experience is that they can be quite a big difference in between how European investors look at a case versus US investors and the Asian investors. So I would be very curious to get your take on that part of it.
Yeah. That's a very good question as well. Again, European investors, in my experience, is they tend to be even higher risk averse. They're willing to invest into smaller size business between 5 to 10 million. With a view of 3 to 5 years. And this is very important because size matter, then valuations, okay? So, for example, in US, they will be more interested in much bigger size of the business, between, let's say, 10 to 50 million to start with. And then you can talk about valuation with them. Because the US investors, they are more size driven than the project driven. But European investors, I found that maybe because of the old money reasons, the family money is usually like few generations, they're willing to take up the risk of supporting the smaller size entrepreneur and grow with them in a much longer term view. So, but in US, they are more interested in size and shorter term time frame, between 2 to 3 years. It is very rare for 5 years in US, and also the size of the business. So if you're launching a very big size of the business, you should actually look for US investor base. But if you are launching between 10, 20, 30 million size of business, European based investor will be quite useful.
Thanks a lot.
Right, May, you have a question, please ask your question.
Hi, Richard. This is May. I've been a very, very long time investor in the alternative asset space, in private equity, venture, hedge, and so on. But I think it's probably useful for you to clarify a little bit of the context for which you're raising this money. Forgive me, before I came online, I really just wanted to support Inez. I'm a huge fan of Inez and Anna's initiative, and how inclusive they've been. But I myself have raised money for Blackstone and so forth. But so please clarify, because I think for this audience, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are raising money for the first time. But I think the context for which that you raised your money is a little bit more detailed, and perhaps you can expand on that. So just on a very quick look while you were talking, because I wanted to understand the terms for which you were raising. You're already a public company, but it looks like what you did was you raised in order to do a buyout of an existing European hypercar developer, Apollo Automobile. Is that right?
Oh, so May, I think what I'm not sure, when did you join the meeting? Is it like since the beginning, or?
I think pretty much since the beginning. I
oh,
think
okay.
Still
So
introducing themselves.
yeah, so I did talk about that. There's two part of my experience. One is for the Listco, the public company, which is completely different group of investors and completely different reason for going out raising money. And then for private projects, like what I did for the skincare and entertainment business, that is the private side. So it's two separate things. But if you want me to expand more on the listed market side, I can do that as well. So for us, raising the money, the 140 million in total, is not only about acquiring the brand of Apollo from Germany, but to restructure the whole company that Mr. Lee, Ms. Chow, and Mr. Ho bought back in 2017. So it is not only a acquisition projects, it's a whole company restructurings. Because before I joined, they don't have a brand and they don't have a proper directions of the business. So we have to come in a much more complicated projects by looking into what this Listco already have, and what they need, and what kind of people that should be kept, what are the people that should be fired. And then we come up with the idea that, oh, we need a brand. Plus, we are also finishing another acquisition in Germany that is called Idanium, that they are the tier one supplier of Volkswagen Group, to complement with what we have in Japan for being the technology focused outsourcing engineering business for these big brands globally. So the money raising for the Listco 860 is a totally different type of fundraise, I would say. because we are looking for strategic investors. That's the reason why we brought in Dr. Jiang from Shanghai, and then we brought in the Saudis right now. So these are more strategic investors into us, helping us to restructure the whole business. And now, when we are finishing the end of restructuring, then we can start basically launching our new businesses and turn 860 from originally when they bought the shell was a retail, luxury retail, which is watches, jewelry, into a mobility technologies focused company. So it's very different. Yeah.
So did you do a private raise and then you did a reverse listing?
No. What happened is in 2017, Mr. Lee, Michelle, and Mr. Ho, they bought the shell 860. Okay. If you know, in Hong Kong, buying and trading list of shell is quite common. So once you bought it, and then you have to clean up whatever inside they have. And then what I did is I was brought in 2019 January to help actually clean up the legacy business, legacy asset, and to draft out a new strategy for the business. And with that, list out the strategy of what we need to acquire, what we need to change into, and then based on that plan to go out and raise capital.
Okay.
So it's very different, yeah.
So these are really private notes that you raised.
I would say it's private investor, but because we are a listed company, we basically give out newly issued listed shares.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense, because I think in the context of the dollar amount that you were mentioning from the beginning, it's a very different proposition than what you've been doing for your private companies, which I think is probably a lot more applicable to this group.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I
think all your comments are great, in terms of the flavors that you've given on Korean investors, Taiwan investors, US investors, and European investors. I think that those flavors I can, very much appreciate. I thought that it was worth clarifying because I think your deal in the automobile deal, I think, is a very interesting deal in itself. But it's quite different from the startup or the growth phases.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally different things.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank
No
you,
problem.
May. Okay, we have time for only one more questions, unfortunately. Amazing. Would you like to maybe limit your questions to one or two?
Sure. Hi, Richard. I just wondering, because we're doing fundraising. So right now we're speaking to a couple of investors in US and also in the Southeast Asia. And we also had corporate institutions wanting to invest in us. So I was wondering, for your private companies like the beauty brand, what would be your strategy? Do you talk to a couple of investors at the same time, both private and corporate? And also, what are the key factors to close an investment deal? And for private investors, especially because you said you haven't met them before, right? So what would be your due diligence work to research on them, and what would be their involvement in your company?
For the skincare business before, when we were raising, as I just mentioned, right? The key thing is I raised the original 4 to 5 million first from friends and colleagues, families, to start off the base of the business, so that there is at least something to show what we are trying to do. And then with the media help on boosting the valuations to find the outside investors. So that is very important. I guess, amazing, you already have the business, right? So with that sense, I would say that you might definitely need to use what I just mentioned on the media side to help boost the brand awareness of your business, and that will definitely help on valuation increase. But at the same time, I don't usually take turns on, let's talk to the corporate investor first or talk to the individual investor first. No, but basically you talk to everybody and see who is interested. and who can give you a better valuation than the others. Then you choose among that. So that's my advice.
Great, thanks. I guess for us, it's also we have a business. We started to build it now, and the money we raise is just for market expansion, right? Going to the US. So our strategy, I think it's also related to Jay's question here, is also to identify US-based investors to help us enter the market, because that makes more sense than, you know, Asian investors, right? So
Yes.
my other question would be like, for this, do you know, like after you build a business, like, because you started from the idea, right? And then you build the foundation, and then you go on to build on. So for those investors who look at the business itself, do they look at the actual revenue, like, you know, like, or any the potential?
For as I said before, for a lot of these investors, especially early stage, they look for your vision. What are you trying to do, and is it possible to reach that? And you have to explain very detailedly on how you think you will achieve that. Like for example, on the skincare, I was pitching the idea of using the least amount of money to create a global brand. So my idea was certain part was selling online. Actually, majority part is selling online. Certain part is selling it in the physical stores. And how do you actually go through using media help to increase the brand awareness globally? So that's why we chose UK as the key brand building center, because UK has a great impact on the whole global skincare branding image. So these are something that I use to help myself on raising the brand awareness, so that in order to help also raising the valuations to attract bigger size investors.
Thank you so much. And are those strategic investors you talk to, the European ones, or they are mainly like private individuals with high net worth?
Mostly private. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Richard. It was such an interesting sharing, and thanks everyone for asking great questions. I think to wrap up, I'd love, Richard, if you could summarize what would be, what are the fundraising mistakes we should avoid, and maybe how can we practice fundraising skills?
Yeah, sometime when you are very passionate about your business, you understand what you want to do, but you are not able to deliver that message clearly, then people will not understand, and they will not be able to see your picture. That is the key. So you definitely need to practice a lot, looking at the mirror or talking to your friends, and see if they actually see what you see. That's the key, because without that, it's difficult.
That's great. Thank you so much. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining this session. We're having regular Coffee with CEOs, so stay tuned. And if you want to have more personalized business advice, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We'll put you in touch with great advisors, mentors like Richard. So yeah, thanks everyone, and Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next time.